for future presidents. Is abuse of power an impeachable offense?
Well, you're going to talk to the lawyers about it, but I will tell you, there's nothing here. I had a very innocent conversation with a very fine gentleman from the Ukraine, and it was based on that. People don't even want to talk about the conversation. I got to watch glimpses in between all of these meetings that I just told you about. I got to watch glimpses of what is taking place, wasting time in Washington. And I watched, they don't talk about my conversation. They don't talk about my transcripts. Remember this, when Schiff made up the phony story and he repeated it to Congress and the world, and it was a totally phony story, then I released the transcript. There was supposed to be a second whistleblower. What happened to him? There was, wait, otherwise I won't do your show. Wait. There was supposed to be an informer. What happened to the informer? All of these people disappeared. And when they saw this transcript, they said, we got problems. But they went ahead because they were already there, because they had a phony, concocted story made up. So here's the story. Did nothing wrong. It was a perfect conversation. It was totally appropriate. The best lawyers in the world have looked at it. The Department of Justice has looked at it, given it a sign-off. There was nothing wrong. They never thought I was going to release the conversation. They probably didn't think we had transcribers or we had it transcribed or taped, but they never thought we were going to release it. When we released that conversation, all hell broke out with the Democrats because they say, wait a minute, this is much different than Shifty Schiff told us. So we're doing very well. I got to watch enough. I thought our team did a very good job. But honestly, we have all the material. They don't have the material.
If you were wondering why Trump's handlers wanted to get him 4,000 miles away from Washington, D.C. during his impeachment trial, this is why. Because even on the other side of the Atlantic, even during his own impeachment trial, Trump still can't help but incriminate himself. To be clear, one of the 2 articles of impeachment levied against the president was for obstructing Congress by withholding documents and witnesses. And so for him to not only acknowledge this fact, but brag about it on camera during the trial is as brazenly corrupt as it gets. And it underscores the serious issue at the heart of Trump's impeachment, which is that investigators still haven't received a single document, piece of paper, email, or record from the executive branch, from the White House or the Office of Management and Budget or the Department of Defense. And that was exacerbated by Senate Republicans' complicity in the obstruction. During a marathon session well past midnight on the first night of the Senate trial, GOP senators voted down Democratic amendments requesting documents from the White House related to Ukraine, documents from the State Department including communications about the decision to withhold aid to Ukraine, documents related to Secretary of State Pompeo, former Special Envoy to Ukraine Kurt Volker, former Charge d'Affaires in Ukraine Bill Taylor, Ambassador to the EU Gordon Sondland, and Trump's personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani, communications from the Office of Management and Budget, including emails between Michael Duffy and Robert Blair, and communications from Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney related to the delayed aid. In other words, not only is Trump willfully obstructing Congress's investigation, but Republicans are helping him. And yet Trump's admission of guilt at Davos is par for the course. Trump already admitted that the purpose of his infamous call with Ukrainian President Zelensky was to get him to open an investigation into Biden.
Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens. It's a very simple answer. So I would say that President Zelensky, if it were me, I would recommend that they start an investigation into the Bidens, because nobody has any doubt that they weren't crooked. That was a crooked deal, 100%.
And beyond that, he even went so far as to then publicly ask China to open an investigation into Biden in an extension of the very crime that got him impeached in the first place.
And by the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
And so the point here isn't whether Trump's committed the crimes he's accused of, the guy admitted it himself on numerous occasions, it's that he believes himself to be above the law. It's that he knows his party is too collectively spineless to dare hold him accountable for it. It is as blatant a disregard for the rule of law as we've seen in American history, only exacerbated by the fact that Republicans in the Senate care more about being singled out by a mean tweet by Trump than they do about actually upholding their oath of office. Now, as part of Trump's diatribe in Davos, he said that when Democrats saw the transcript of his call with Zelensky, meaning the summary of his call, that all hell broke out. And credit where it's due, he's right. All hell did break out, but the reason wasn't because Democrats had made some grave miscalculation. It was because the guy released a document wherein he admitted to his crime. Trump and Republicans can try and manifest this parallel reality where the call was, quote, perfect by repeating it over and over and over again, but the summary of the call clearly states the words, "I would like you to do us a favor," though, before asking for investigations into some conspiracy theory he thinks would show that Ukraine, not Russia, interfered in the 2016 election, and that Joe Biden fired a prosecutor to help his son. Both of his requests, those favors, were intended only to help Trump personally. The first one by pinning the blame on Ukraine for Russian interference and thereby disproving the entire Mueller probe, which was a probe against Trump, and the second one to give Trump the soundbite of the announcement of the investigation into his top political opponent that he'd play on repeat from now until November should Biden end up being the nominee. That, and that alone, was the intent of the call. I mean, even the Republican called witness in the impeachment inquiry, constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley, said that Trump's call was, quote, anything but perfect.
His call was anything but perfect.
So Trump can continue to tweet it in all caps tweets and scream it at press conferences and print it on red hats, but to his dismay, that won't make it true. What is true, though, is that Trump extorted a foreign country for dirt on his political opponent that he could use in the next election. What's true is that he then orchestrated a cover-up to prevent the evidence of that crime from being released. And what's true is that if he's actually as innocent as he says he is, he'll release the materials that he's just admitted to withholding and encourage relevant administration officials to testify. Because after all, what could go wrong if he has nothing to hide?